The Ravens take care of business against the Washington Commanders in the Battle of the Beltway. Up next, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. We touch on that and more next on Ravens Talk. Lots of Commanders fans thought they would come into Baltimore and pull off the upset. Not to be. Ravens take care of business against the Commanders, beating them 30-23, and now they'll look ahead into a pivotal matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. Welcome to Ravens Talk. I'm your host, Samuel Njoku. As I mentioned, Ravens take down the Commanders. We talked all about how that team would progress in that game and what things the Commanders could have done to potentially steal the show, but we knew looking at the film it wasn't meant to be. We'll talk all about that. We'll talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because an old foe, old friend, some would say, Baker Mayfield hosts the Ravens Monday Night Football. So a lot of familiarity in that QB matchup. We'll touch on that. Kevin Oestreicher, host of the Locked On Ravens podcast, will come on and talk to us about what his thoughts were on that Ravens-Commanders game and what he expects to happen in that Buccaneers game upcoming on Monday Night Football. But first, Ravens do what I said they would do. 4 straight wins for the Ravens. If you're an NFC team, you really have no shot. You really have no shot against Lamar Jackson. The Giants did it way back when, 4 years ago. Fluke game. I mean, that's all I could really say about that. But if you don't have familiarity, if you're not used to playing Lamar Jackson, it's tough. It's tough sliding for sure. Now, Jaden Daniels played okay. He played good for a rookie. There's things I saw on film, and if you watch Pivotal Moments, I highlighted some of those things that he did well. He looked okay. He looked good. Okay. He's a shot to be a quarterback. Maybe the Commanders' struggles and curse, some would say, will dissipate and they're a playoff team next year. Maybe a playoff team this year, but the Ravens are here. And the Commanders are just slightly below them. And you kind of saw that in the early going to this game. Ravens just did whatever they want on offense. I mean, Lamar Jackson pretty much stole the show. You saw the Commanders try and emulate what the Bengals did, keeping 8 guys in the box, something they weren't familiar with doing. We talked about that. They're not really a team that really loads the box like that. And they don't really have success blitzing when they do so. So all of that came into fruition. You saw the Commanders try and load the box, but what did the Ravens do? Screens to Zay Flowers. Toss plays to Derrick Henry to force the linebackers to move, something they're not really accustomed to doing. And if they were to lock in on Derrick Henry, which they did a little bit in the early going to that game, Lamar Jackson's arm is there and is very prevalent. And it's one of the reasons why people are talking about Lamar Jackson being the MVP through the first 6 weeks of the season. So how do you stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry? We talked about this in the offseason. No one was talking about what Derrick Henry could bring to this team. All eyes were on the other flashy free agent signings. And I was telling you guys, this is not fair for opposing defense. And you're starting to see it come to light. And it's only going to get worse. It's only week 6. The Ravens just got done playing week 6 football. It's going to get worse for these defenders. How are you going to stop Derrick Henry in January? Who wants to tackle Derrick Henry in January? Oh, we got to worry about Lamar Jackson leaking on the outside as well. Oh, we got to worry about Lamar Jackson throwing over our heads to Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. I mean, this is going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. You're seeing the pundits watching the film, the analysts. If you're into national media, I tell folks at home to really focus in on your local sports media. That's content creators like Kevin Oestreicher, who we have on, other guys, Bobby Trossett, Sarah, they have their own show over there, Rita. I mean, the list can go on and on with these Ravens content creators. Listen to them more so than the national media, but you're starting to see the national media gravitate towards what we've been saying since the Ravens picked up Derrick Henry. This is going to be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of defenders, a tough out for these teams, even the upper echelon teams like the Bills, who the Ravens have already defeated, like the Chiefs, who the Ravens came within the toe of defeating in week 1. So I don't know. I really don't know. And on the defensive side, you saw things from the Ravens that are a little concerning, but keep in mind, Ball talks about the Commanders being the number 1 offense in the league, scoring points at will. They only scored 2 touchdowns. The Ravens held themselves in check. Besides a 4th down toss And a tremendous catch by Scary Terry, the corner of the end zone, that really gave the Commanders a chance to potentially tie it at the end of the game. And a pick play that we talked about in pivotal moments where Brandon Stevens was picked and Marcus Williams was able to cover his zone and Terry was able to get into the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. That's really the only points that the Commanders were able to score. The defense held the Commanders in check. And we'll talk about it on the upcoming matchup. I want to see more of that. I don't want to see the scary play calling that we saw against the Bengals. Oh, we got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase to worry about. Let's play back 15 yards and just hope they don't beat us in the end zone. No. Play aggressive for 4 quarters. You have the talent. So it's great to see that from the Ravens. Definitely some miscommunication issues still arising, and the addition of Dean Pease will help shorten things up, I think. At least that's what the Ravens are hoping for. But for the most part, this is what you want to see if you're a Ravens fan. And we're entering the second of 3 parts. I say the first part is the show me part. Show me who you are as a team. So through 6 weeks, the Ravens have showed us that they're a dominant run team, an offensive juggernaut. Middle of the team is, can you separate yourself? This is the second part. Separate yourself from the rest of the league. And the third part is just win. That's up to December, January, February. Wins matter. Nothing else does. So I'm liking what I've seen from the Ravens. If you're a Ravens fan, you should feel the same way. The Ravens definitely showed me that they are one of the best teams in the league, top 3 for sure. Some may say number 1 in the league. I mean, the Chiefs have something to say about that. The Vikings also are staking their claim, but the Ravens are right there. Right there. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Bucs game. Ravens, Bucs, Baker Mayfield versus Lamar Jackson. Who's going to come out on top? We'll talk about it next on Ravens Talk. Welcome back to Ravens Talk. Talked about it. Ravens defeat the Commanders. Now they set their sights to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Baker Mayfield. He's a foe that the Ravens know very well during his time in the Cleveland franchise. So definitely a fun matchup. A guy who's playing pretty good football. In fact, he's playing good football for the Buccaneers for now 2 years. Last year, Baker Mayfield led the Bucs to the playoffs, looking like more of the same in 2024. There are things that I see in this film that, piques my interest. Let's look at the numbers. The Buccaneers load the box quite frequently, in fact. I think they're 5th in the league in terms of the amount of time in which they're loading the box. So they're familiar with keeping bodies down there. Something the Bengals weren't accustomed to. Something that the Commanders clearly weren't accustomed to. So the Buccaneers are familiar with loading the box. And one of the reasons why their run defense is so good, they do their diligence in taking away the run. Slight problem with that. They're terrible against the play action. And we saw what the Ravens were able to do against the Commanders team that continued to load the box to try and stop Derrick Henry. We now know that the Ravens play action attack is best in the league. And the Buccaneers, they trend near the bottom in every major statistical category when it comes to the play action play. So what does that tell me? Bucs have a decision to make. It's pick your poison Sunday, or in this case, pick your poison Monday. Something that the Ravens have given defensive coordinators that choice for years now. But more importantly now that they have Derrick Henry, who are you going to stop? You're going to stop Derrick Henry? Or you're going to stop Lamar Jackson with his arm? And we see that he has tight ends that can get open in zone coverage. The Buccaneers, by the way, they run the most zone coverage in all of football. Not by a mile, because I think there's a team in second place that also runs a lot of zone. But the Buccaneers are clearly the number 1 team when it comes to zone coverage. I think they run zone about 83% of the time, which is nuts. But that plays into their favor when they play against Lamar Jackson in the red zone. They're accustomed to keeping guys in zone coverage to protect against a run by Lamar Jackson and also to cover their bases when it comes to these streaking receivers going across on drag routes or crossing routes, post routes, whatever you want to call it. So the Buccaneers are well equipped to prepare for the Ravens in terms of tendencies. But when it comes to actual results, it's not looking good. We talked about it. Play action being a problem. Their pass defense without the play action, still bad. The Buccaneers are not a very good defense. So it's looking like another 30-point game for the Ravens. It just is. Sorry, Bucs fans. It's not looking good on that front. Now, let's turn the page, because there's 2 sides to the NFL coin, one on offense and one on defense, where the Ravens again struggle. Now, like we mentioned earlier, they did only give up 2 touchdowns to the Commanders. So it's not like the Ravens are trending in the bottom, but they play another stout offensive power attack. They got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin. Those two guys are eating up the middle of the field where the Ravens have struggled mightily in defending so far in 2024. So it's going to be up to Marlon Humphrey to cover Mike Evans. Mike Evans has a hamstring issue, but all things considered, I think he'll play. Chris Godwin playing out of his mind. If you're a fan of fantasy football, then you know that he's the top wide receiver in the league right now. And part of that is because of his ability to eat up the middle of the field. So the Ravens have their work cut out for them. Communication will be key. You cannot give up plays in the middle, especially when you have plays designed to stop the middle of the field. You have Roquan Smith, one of the better cover linebackers up until this point. I mean, he has struggled a little bit. Some of that is communication. Some of that is the player. Some of that is philosophy. But all in all, results are results, and the Ravens are not doing well in the middle of the field right now. Something that I'm sure the Bucs will be paying close attention to. So I expect a lot of attacks in the middle of the field. So it's up to the Ravens. I like the matchup between Marlon Humphrey and Mike Evans. I think the physical receiver versus the physical corner kind of cancels each other out. I think Marlon Humphrey's had a phenomenal year. I know a lot of fans are up in their arms because the pass defense has struggled, and Marlon Humphrey's the very vocal one, the joyous one. He has his own podcast. Shout out to Jack Sullivan over there, where they do good work over there. But a lot of fans want to see more from Marlon Humphrey. But I think this is the matchup. It's the reason why you have him, Marlon Humphrey. Big body receivers are still prevalent in today's league, and they're going to need him to stop Mike Evans for sure. I think Chris Godwin will have to go one-on-one with Brandon Stevens and maybe sometimes Nate Wiggins. So you're going to have situations where I think the Ravens may choose to play more aggressive. I do not want them to play as, lenient as they did in the past against the Bengals, keeping guys 5-10 yards down the line of scrimmage and basically saying, do whatever you want in the first 10 yards and hopefully we stop you for a field goal. I don't want to see that in this game. I want to see the Ravens attempt to stop Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, and Chris Godwin. So hopefully they do that. And we could talk about the run game for the Bucs, but the Ravens are such a dominant run-stopping team. I have no concerns with that. I know the Bucs do have dangerous backs in White and company, but no one's been able to stop this run defense yet, so I don't expect that to change. I think the Bucs' game plan will be to attack the defense through the air, and it's up to the Ravens to do what they have to do to stop it. So we'll see. I'm not as concerned with the defense because, again, the talent's there, but I've been saying that every week, and we've yet to see a complete game since that Bills contest. So I'm hoping that on Monday Night Football, the Ravens come together and come together quick. I want to see more out of Eddie Jackson. Hasn't played his best football yet. Marcus Williams continues to struggle, being caught out of position at times. It's all communication, easily fixed, but we say easy. It's been 7 weeks, not fixed quite yet. So we'll see. At the end of the day, you are what your stats say you are, and the Ravens are 31 in pass defense. So teams are going to continue to attack that deep part of the defense until the Ravens prove that they can stop it. It's as simple as that. I still do like the matchups, but if you're a Bucs fan, you got to hope Baker Mayfield can get the ball down the field. The Ravens have a pass rush. Is it as consistent pass rush? No. There are times where you can see that even Jaden Daniels had time in the pocket. But the Ravens do a good job of blitzing their corners, their safeties. A lot of Kyle Hamilton in the line of scrimmage. Arthur Marlette looks like he's going to be making a return. So Arthur Marlette's a guy who definitely got into the quarterback's face a lot last season. The game that comes to mind is the Lions game where Jared Goff was sacked by Arthur Marlette, something that the Ravens will try to implement more of throughout the season. So they're going to have chances to get at Baker Mayfield. If you're a Bucs fan, you got to hope that Baker can weather the storm and attack the middle of the defense, because that will be the focal point of a lot of offenses moving forward until the Ravens show that they can stop it. When we come back, Kevin Oestreicher from Locked On Ravens comes back to the show. He'll give us his thoughts on the Ravens and Commanders game and touch on what he believes may be the key to winning if you're a Ravens fan against the Bucs on Monday Night Football. Touch on the next on Ravens Talk. Welcome back to Ravens Talk. We have this, as you mentioned, Kevin Oestreicher with Locked On Ravens. Welcome back to the podcast, man.
I appreciate you having me back. I know it's been a little bit since I've been back, and over the course of these last couple of weeks, the Ravens have turned their season around. I mean, we were talking about an 0-2 team at one point. Are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to be able to rebound? And I think this is honestly the best possible response you could have had.
Yeah, I think every fan would agree with you on that. It's been a crazy turnaround. We went from, will the Ravens make the playoffs, to looking at the power rankings, the Ravens are ranked 3, 2, sometimes even 1 if I look at it. So definitely quite the turnaround for the Ravens. A lot of credit goes to John Harbaugh, but obviously a lot of credit goes to Lamar Jackson. And speaking of Lamar Jackson, he just had a trial for the ages, I guess, for who's the best quarterback in the Beltway between him and Jaden Daniels. An opportunity we won't see again until possibly 2028. But what are your thoughts about that game? The Ravens go ahead and pick up the win. What are your likes and dislikes from that contest?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game, and I thought a really good quarterback battle between Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. I mean, I thought both guys made really high-level throws. They both, outside of obviously the Lamar interception bouncing off of Mark Andrews' hands, there weren't really mistakes in that game by either player. And I thought that with both of those guys, with the fact that they're so low mistake, defenses need to be able to take advantage of every little opportunity that they can in order to get off the field. And I thought the Baltimore's defense, despite them having some struggles, obviously Jaden was able to kind of go up and down part of the field pretty at will. But then once he got to like Baltimore's 35-yard line, Baltimore's 30-yard line, for the most part, the Ravens defense was able to step up, do the bend, don't break mentality. And I thought that that was the difference in the game, because you saw in that game, offensively for the Ravens, the Commanders were actively doing everything in their power to go and stop Derrick Henry in that rushing attack. And so that left Zay Flowers one-on-one. It left Rashod Bateman one-on-one. And those two guys are too good of route runners to be able to leave in those situations and not get punished from it on a decently consistent basis. So we saw Mark Andrews get back and welcome back to the party, Mark Andrews. You know, that was a big one, especially when he is putting stressors on the defense. But you and I have talked about it before, Sam. This play action game is such a key element of what this Ravens team has to do all season long. And I think this game was the most perfect example we've seen so far about how they can do that effectively, because if a team is going to sell out to stop the run, it's like, okay, well, we're just going to work this and make sure that you're biting hard on our fakes so that there's no doubt that it's going to be a successful play. And I thought that the Commanders, for selling out, did a decent-ish job about stopping Derrick Henry. He still had 132 yards, and I'm kind of thinking, 132 yards, that's really good, but we're almost becoming numb already to Derrick Henry performances after his 87-yard touchdown. You got almost 200 yards. It's like we're numb to Lamar stuff because we've seen it for the past 6+ years, almost 7 years now. For Derrick Henry, we're 6 games in, and I'm sitting here saying, is 132 yards really that good? Like, is there, like, of course it is, but it's like we've already seen so much greatness. So I thought overall, we kind of talked about it, and I know this narrative has been said, but wasn't really a 7-point game. Commanders got a score in late. I think the Ravens kind of had control for most, if not all, of the game.
Yeah, I think as of the second quarter, in my opinion, I was very, okay, Ravens got this in the bag. They just have to continue to do what they do. I think they learned a lesson from the Raiders game, keeping their foot on the gas and not letting up and making sure that the Commanders had no chance of coming back. So definitely liked what I saw from that game. I like what I saw from Jaden Daniels too. I think a lot of Commanders fans were harping that the Ravens need to be prepared for him. And I saw some things prior to the game that led me to believe he'd had success. But seeing it in person, seeing the film head to head with his defense made me realize that the Commanders definitely had something special heading into 2026 and beyond. But this year, the W belongs to the Baltimore Ravens. I won't harp too much on the Commanders game because there is a Monday Night Football game coming up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another chance for Lamar Jackson to go head to head with Baker Mayfield. Hasn't really had that matchup prowess since he left the Cleveland Browns, but now you have a team in the Bucs that are looking like they're going to be possibly a playoff team against a Lamar Jackson-led Ravens team looking for their 5th straight win. What are the things that you see in this game that makes you a little concerned about the Ravens possibly getting the W? And what are some things that pique your interest as a possible weakness that the Ravens could exploit?
Yeah, I think obviously, and it's been talked about almost all week, is the Ravens in their play action versus the Bucs in their ability to defend play action. And Tampa Bay ranks pretty far down on that totem pole in terms of their ability to defend that. You know, they're 29, 30, 31, 32, like they are down there. So if the Ravens can get their running game going and force Tampa Bay to send a lot of guys in the box and sell out to stop the run, much like we saw with Washington, that could be recipe for disaster for this Tampa Bay team because of how effective we know that the Ravens can be while doing that. And especially if Derrick Henry can get going early. That's the big part, because there's always going to be bark and bite. There's the bark and the bite thing where it's like he can't be all bark but no bite in terms of this, right? There'll always be bite with Derrick Henry because, well, he's Derrick Henry. Always bite with Lamar Jackson. At least the illusion, even if it's not working, there's going to be some bite to that rushing attack. You always have to defend it in some way, shape, or form. But if you're just it's 2 yards a carry. I'd be shocked if that happened. But Tampa has some guys up the middle that can cause some problems for you. It's just a matter of isolating those players. And I think defensively, you have to stop Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as best as you can. I don't think it's going to be perfect. Obviously, those are two very talented receivers, and they're going to get theirs in some way, shape, or form. But we've talked about it with guys like Devontae Adams, with Jamar Chase, with Terry McLaurin, these star number one receivers. It's like, make someone else beat you. Make it be Cade Otton in the middle of the field, as a tight end option. Make it be a couple of other lesser wide receivers. The Ravens secondary has certainly struggled this season. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I thought that we saw some positives, some other negatives in that Washington game that maybe they can take over and use for the rest of the season. The positives. Let's leave the negatives in the past and not talk about those again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier. The play action will be a huge determining factor in this game. I think the Ravens are going to kill them with it. The Ravens also have to deal with the fact that the Bucs are already bad against the pass, and can they set up the run? Can they use the run to their advantage early to set up that play action? Or will they come out firing off cylinders early? Remains to be determined, but I agree with you completely. You got to stop Mike Evans, contain him, make sure he's out of the game. Hopefully Chris Godwin as well. Make someone else beat you, and hopefully the Ravens find a way to do that. We mentioned we had Zachary Rohr with Dean Pease now, so those two defensive minds together possibly can come up with a game plan to finally clinch up those star receivers, something that the Ravens have had to face all season long. I mean, there's been a gauntlet of receivers through the first 7 weeks of the season. Let me get your thoughts about Lamar Jackson now. It's been 6 weeks. I know it's early, but those 3 letters keep popping up. MVP. So far, he's looked like to be probably the front runner. What are your thoughts on that? Would you agree that he's the top guy, or there's some other guys you think may hold that claim early on in week 7?
I think we might see an MVP matchup between Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield in this game. Yeah. I mean, 2 of the front runners for the award right now. I mean, you mentioned those 3 letters MVP. I'm going to chop off the last letter of that and make it MV3 with Lamar Jackson because, man, right now I think that he is the front runner for his 3rd MVP. The stats back it up. His play backs it up. The eye test backs it up. And I know there are a bunch of people, Sam, who try to discredit some of Lamar's accolades and awards by saying, oh, well, the passing yards, he doesn't have a lot of passing yards or passing touchdowns. It's all this other crazy stuff. No, Lamar is top 5, top 7 in passing yards, passing touchdowns. Like, this is a player that is doing it all right now. I think this is the best Lamar Jackson we've seen over the course of his career, which is crazy to think about considering all of the other versions of him that we have seen. So to me, obviously, Mahomes is always going to be in the convo because the Chiefs are undefeated and it's the Chiefs, but he's not playing well this year. And I know some people have him at the top of their ballot just because the Chiefs are undefeated. There's a lot you factor in, records included, but the Ravens have only lost 2 games this season. It's not like the Ravens are a 1-5 football team right now. So I think, to me, look, Sam Darnold in Minnesota is another guy that is also undefeated. I know he also maybe is someone that people look at, but I just think with the play Lamar Jackson is putting on display right now, it has to be him with everything factored in. He's doing it all this year.
Yeah, and it's hard to disagree with you. I know if you're a fan of another team, you might have another guy or two, but what we've seen from Lamar Jackson is the best we've ever seen, and that's including 2019, last year when he won the MVP. So it's definitely great to see, and watching him on film, so comfortable in the pocket, so aware of what he's doing, checking at the line of scrimmage, something that he did a little bit last year, but he seems to be in total control, something that Todd Monken has worked with him for the past 2 years to get him comfortable with, and you're starting to see that from Lamar Jackson. So I agree completely. I like MV3. I might steal that for you moving forward because he looks like he might be getting his 3rd one as long as he continues upon this trajectory moving forward. Let's talk about some keys to the game before I let you go. We talked about the defense needing to step up. Are there any other major players, maybe not too much players, maybe a player that no one's talking about on the Bucs side that you think Ravens fans should watch out for?
I think with the way that their running game is right now, they're a top 10 rushing offense right now. And obviously we know Baltimore on the ground is the best in the league by a very wide margin. Yeah. I don't know if Rashod White's going to play in this game. I haven't heard anything about if he's going to play or not, but I'm looking at guys like Bucky Irving